Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Uncle Dad Talks. The Uncle Dad Talk Show. I am with you, or I am with. It's been a while, so I'm a little rusty. Sorry. I am hanging out with the man, the myth, the legend, the NOLA proud. Give it up for Mike Hampton, or we like to call him on here, just Mike.
Yes, that was a bit of a stumble, but I think we'll recover, right?
It's been a while. It's been a while. I'll tell you this: at least we didn't stumble as bad as somebody with the last name as Mahomes.
Stumble and a fumble, a few fumble, right?
So, are we going to lose our Kansas City audience or what?
Yeah, we got to be careful.
Yes.
We don't want to offend anyone, right?
No offending here. Mike, what's up, man? We've been gone for a little bit, but we've been very busy. You've been saving kids in the Amazon. I've been out there doing kung fu kicks. It's been a lot. It's been a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, it's been a busy time of year. We're getting into our mode for work, and we've been out in the field gaining lots of content for everyone.
Yes, gaining lots of content indeed. And really quickly, just thank you for everybody who's been viewing the new YouTube. It's doing better than we ever expected, that's for sure. I thought we would only get one view. We have gotten way more than that. So thank you guys for watching. But here's the thing, and Mike, I know we hate being those guys, but what do they got to do now? They have to do what?
They have to subscribe and like
And
and share, comment, and yes, subscribe, like, comment, share.
yes, please do that. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to comment down below. Because here's the thing, the more you comment, we'll pick a winner. That's what I'm thinking, Mike. Every week, the more comments we have, I'll just pick a random commentator, and we'll give them a prize. What do you think?
A commentor.
Commentor. Yes. You down for that idea?
Yeah, sure.
Let's get back.
You have the vault. You've got lots of stuff to get rid of.
You can see some of it in the back behind me.
Oh, I see some things. Signed photos.
Look at that. Lori Petty. Man, I got a story about that.
Lori Petty in the house. Yeah.
All right, Mike, but today's episode is a fun one. We are talking about my favorite subject, horror. Horror.
That's your second favorite subject.
Yeah, by the way, this is not kid friendly.
Well, depends on where your kids are growing up. I like that.
That got me there. So Mike, we're talking about the newly released, the special documentary. I guess you would call it like a documentary series. It's called First Word on Horror, and it is directed by Philip Gelatt. It features key authors such as Stephen Graham Jones, Paul Tremblay, Elizabeth Hand, Mariana Enriquez, and many more. This is a 15-part documentary series that profiles 5 of the finest horror writers working today. What's really cool is that they discuss their lives, these authors, their inspirations, their philosophies, their writing techniques, along with reading one of their short stories. It's really interesting. They also reveal kind of secrets behind the stories. I really can't recommend it enough. It's now available on video on demand, starting with episode 1, which was Stephen Graham Jones. Now, fun fact, Mike, we're going to have more of the authors on the show throughout the season as it comes out. So keep an eye out. I'm going to give you a little tease. Sir, the first author that's going to be on here is Paul Tremblay. So that's pretty exciting. And Mike should be there for that as well, because he wasn't here for this interview. And that's okay, because again, you're saving the children in the Amazon.
That's right. That's right. One child at a time.
One child at a time. So for those who don't know, Philip Gelatt is a filmmaker, writer. He's done so many great things. He talks about his career, but one of the things he's very passionate about is horror gaming. And so I'm just kind of curious, Mike, for those who don't know, you're not necessarily the biggest gamer out there. I know you respect the medium, but it's not your go-to. Do you have any memories of horror video games?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I played video games in my past, but I was really excited when the first Left 4 Dead came out on Xbox.
Yeah.
Like I got an Xbox just for that game.
Really?
And
I didn't hear that.
yeah, that's the reason I got Xbox. I no longer have this Xbox, but that's what inspired me to get it, was that, because it was only available on that system.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was scary. Like to me, it was like I was scared to play it, especially at night with all the lights off and the sounds and like the witch zombie lady. And yeah, it was a spooky game for sure.
Mike, did you do any what's the word I'm looking for? Any inspired hot zombie chick art from Left 4 Dead?
No, I like to think that Left 4 Dead was inspired by my hot zombie chick art.
Definitely not true.
No.
But you can imagine if it was.
You could. Yeah, it's fun to do that. It's fun to fantasize things that aren't real.
Exactly. Yes. And speaking of fantasy, talking to this filmmaker about his stories and why he loves horror, it's great. Mike, you weren't here for this, but I think you're going to be excited to watch this as well because honestly, when anybody ever talks about what they're passionate about, right? You know this, it comes out in such a unique way. And he's done big budget things. I mean, he just did the Amazon series Secret Level. He did two of those episodes. That's a massive hit. He did he got Emmy nominated as well. That's right. Let's throw that out there. We have another Emmy nominated person on this show for Death, Love, and Robots. And, he's done some big things, but this is a very big passion project of his. And sometimes I feel like those passion projects mean more than those Hollywood things. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think if you're at the level where you can do those, for sure, it's fulfilling to do something that is your passion that you love. And I think if you have fans or people just in general that consume the stuff can tell the difference between something that's, passionate and comes from within as opposed to taking a job from the outside. And if you have the ability to do both, then you're doing a good job at life.
You're doing a good job in life. I love that. I love that sometimes the most simple things is the most effective. But Mike, really there's not much else to say, but you can go check that out on video on demand. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. I keep saying video on demand, but that's not true. It's actually exclusively on Substack. Mike, have you heard of Substack?
Yes, I hear about it every day.
Substack is a new platform. Go to substack.com. You will see it. It is a very unique platform. They specialize in author content, I guess I would say. And so go check that out. It's just Substack. It should just be substack.com or go to Google and just Google Substack. And we will also put that below in the description of the video. So yeah, it's exclusively only on there. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes, especially on a unique platform like that. But I really think you should check it out because, again, as I always say, if we don't support each other, who's going to support us, right? So, Mike, any last words?
Well, yeah, I would just love to say that as a former horror writer myself and a passionate horror writer, I would be very excited to do such a thing as our friend here on the show.
Go check it out.
So go check it out, and maybe one day I'll be on Substack talking about the return of hot zombie chicks.
Oh, that's next. That's coming next.
No, it's not. It just sounded good though.
Yes, it did. All right, everybody. Remember, we're not uncles, we're not dads. Please enjoy the interview, and we will see you all next week. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hey, what's up, everybody? Uncle Dad here, hanging out by myself. I'm not with my normal co-host, Uncle Just Mike, but I'm with somebody even cooler, I would say. Let's give it up for Philip Gelatt. Am I saying that correct?
Yep, nailed it.
Okay, awesome. I'm not gonna lie to you. So on this show, I have a very high anxiety with last names, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm not gonna say this guy's name right," but I'm glad I did. Okay, awesome. Philip, first, I just want to tell you right away, I'm actually a really, really big fan of your work, and specifically, I love your writing you did for The Bunker.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
That was truly one of the greatest experiences in horror and horror gaming, and clearly, you are a fan of horror, and I guess for our audience who don't know who you are, can you just tell them a little bit about yourself real fast?
Oh, a little bit about myself. So, I write things in many spheres. I've written video games. I wrote Amnesia: The Bunker. I'm writing another game for Frictional that's unannounced that will come out sometime I don't know, in a year and a half probably. I've written a lot of animation. I wrote on Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots and Amazon's Secret Level. I've written movies and directed movies, including The Spine of Night, which is a rotoscope fantasy epic. I wrote the sci-fi film Europa Report, and what the hell else? I wrote some comic books a long time ago. I do all kinds of crap, basically.
You are a man of many, many hats. I love it. Um, so it's funny. You have such a diverse career, and then you're doing a special, unique project right now, which is First Word on Horror. Before we kind of dive into the movie, I am curious. What was the first horror book you ever read, and how did that impact you going forward on this project?
Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about this, and I am afraid that I can't remember the first horror book that I read. But I will tell you early memories of reading horror. I vividly remember reading, as so many so many people will probably have the same answer. I vividly remember reading Stephen King's It for the first time.
Okay.
I vividly remember reading Anne Rice's The Vampire Lestat, And I vividly remember reading, well, all of Clive Barker, but in particular, Clive Barker's Hellbound Heart, which would go on to become Hellraiser. So those are all like teenage reads for me that were hugely well. I'm sorry, one more. Also, Lovecraft's Rats in the Walls. I remember the first time I read that as well. And those all were probably within about a year of time in my life. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So when you read those books, did you ever think that, oh, these will influence me to do some sort of art like this at some point? Or do you think it just was something you enjoy because you enjoy that sense of fear?
So when I was a kid, no, I just liked it. I don't think I was thinking one day I'm going to do this.
Sure.
It took me a long time to get to the place where I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. So no, it was. I just liked it. I mean, and I think thinking about those particular books that I mentioned, I probably liked something different in each of them. They're all horror, but they're all pretty different flavors of horror. So I think no, I think I just enjoyed it as a fan at the time, and I mean, I still do. But definitely then I was it was as a fan. Yeah.
And I love that because, speaking about being a fan, I'm a huge horror fan myself. Now, more in the horror film aspect. I don't read a lot of horror books, but what I would tell you is when watching some of, the first one on horror, what's so unique about it is that it does feel like almost a horror fan's kind of like if you're a fan of horror writing, it's like your dream kind of come true. It's so fascinating, it's so unique, and I really love how it becomes so you become almost just sucked into everything, and I think that's such a hard thing to do as a storyteller. Now, granted, you literally have five storytellers telling their stories, so you have such a great advantage on that. But when you were creating this and you were filming this, and you were kind of coming up with this concept, I should say, was there a challenge kind of foreseeing this to all come together, or do you think that you were like, oh, you know what, I want exactly like this, and it's going to come like this?
I think if I had had my head screwed on tight, I would have thought, oh, maybe this won't work. But I was pretty but I was pretty confident, and I'll tell you, I was pretty confident because I knew that so the first interview we did was with Laird Barron, which is not one of the review episodes, so you haven't seen that episode yet. But I knew Laird personally, or I know him personally, so I knew that he was interesting and a unique personality, and I knew that he had a life story that had crazy stuff in it. So I was pretty confident if I sat him down and just had him like ask him questions about his life, it would be pretty compelling just by the fact of him telling you these crazy stories. And there was a good deal of thought, I think, put into just the visuals of those interviews. Like Sean Kirby, who shot it, is a brilliant DP. So we tried to like I knew that we were going to make the viewer sit with the interview subject, and like we don't do a lot of cutaways to archival footage or those sorts of things. It's very much like you are when they are talking, you are with them. So we wanted to be very careful about the way that those are composed, and as you say, the way that you get pulled into the interview without sort of like a lot of flashy cutting. Because I wanted it to be about like the person, like the human being who's talking to you.
Yeah, and that's actually a point I wanted to make is that it felt like I'm actually in the room sitting across them as they're telling me this story, right? And I also love that you don't make it just about the story, you make it about the person. Now, making it about the person, was that always intentional before going into the aspect of going to the stories?
Yeah, for sure. It is a story. I mean, from the very beginning, it was a series about writers. Then inevitably, when you make something about writers, it's also going to be about their stories. But I, but I wanted it to be about like the human face of creativity, almost like these are the people like who write these stories, and to ask like sort of the subtextual question of the series really is like what's the line between like biography and the story that somebody writes with that biography, or to put it more succinctly, what it really is the split between like the artist and the work, like where is that line, and to ask that question you have to spend time with the human being really, and so that was always part of it. Yep.
And I love that because, in order to really understand somebody's art, you can watch it and you can read it, right? But then when you get to know that person, then you're like, wow, this explains way more than I expected, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's good or bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so I with this coming out and we're celebrating, horror and stuff, I'm also very curious too, like what, and I hope, and I'm sure you've been asked this before, but I'm curious, what are the things that scare you deeply?
So that's a great question. I think there's a lot of things that scare me deeply. I will tell you the one thing that I always think about, and I've always been terrified of this, and it's a very stupid answer, but I'm going to give it anyway.
Okay.
I am terrified of large fish, not necessarily sharks, but like like
Like,
like big, like huge fish. So
like
like
a
I
huge.
remember, yeah, like the idea of being in water and there being something enormous like in the water with me is something that I find legitimately terrifying. I remember, I don't know if you played Half-Life, the first Half-Life. I think it's the first Half-Life. Yeah, and there's at one point you like you're dunked into a vat of water and there's like a thing in there with you, and I was like, oh no, I'm done with this. Like I gotta, I can't, I can't do this. So yeah, that's I mean, but I mean, other than that, like I don't know, nuclear apocalypse, I find pretty terrible. Like there are other things that that terrify me, um, but yeah, that big fish one, it's in there, like it on like a lizard brain, like terrifying thing. Yeah,
I think that's the idea for your next script, man.
it's just called large fish.
Yeah, fish, the VR experience. That's what
Yes, yeah,
talking about horror and seeing how, because what I find fascinating about horror is that it's such a universal love thing for all types of ways. What I also find is that it brings in the different communities, such as the minorities, the LGBTQIA community. Like it's so relatable on all forms. When you talk about horror yourself, do you think there is, when we talk about the connection of that, do you feel that that is something that makes sense? Or do you think it's just because we're a world of outcasts, we tend to lean into liking things that are different?
yeah. I think that horror is for everybody, and I think it is. I mean, let me approach the question this way. It's like so many subgenres, like punk music or something. Like when I was a kid, one of the things I for sure liked about horror was that it was not respectable. Like it was a thing, like
Yeah.
like punk music or metal music or whatever. It was like, no, 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 like it's not for you, like, jocks or whatever. Like, no, no, we're over here, we're the horror kids.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense it was great, and it was, as you said, like we're all outcasts. It was like unifying for outcasts. But now I think horror is more and more a respectable genre in a certain sense, which is good, because I think every genre should have a big tent and it should be for everybody. And I think there is a universality of human experience that inevitably includes horror, which is probably why it's so so popular. But I will always be with the outcast horror people, ultimately, like in the corner, a little bit annoyed that it's respectable.
Sure.
I'm not sure if that answered your question, but but
No, it does, and I also like that because in some respects, your film, I feel like is the outcast in some respects, right? A lot of people don't give horror authors enough love, in my opinion. Like, I go to a lot of conventions and whatever, and I see everybody talking about these horror actors and whatnot, and that's great. But then you have especially independent authors. You have a lot of independent authors doing their thing, writing what they love, barely making the table cost, right? But they're out there and they're doing it. And to me, your film kind of celebrates not just horror, but also the individual creating horror and also the individuals doing this job called writing, which, let's be honest, that's a career that's not for everybody. It's a very tough career. I'm sure like it's not something that works for everybody. There's lots of days where I'm sure you're hungry, but you know what? You do it because you love it. You know what I mean? You do it because you're a part of this community. And so I guess like what I like about your series here is that it's thought provoking on many levels. It's not just a straightforward, hey, these are horror stories. Hey, these are the stories about the author. It's so many layers. And I think you should be very happy that you created something so beautiful like that. Like it is such a beautiful series. And with that being said, can you tell our audience of when the series is coming out and where they can watch it?
Yes. So the series premieres the first week in February, so Friday, February 7th specifically. It will run, it's 15 parts, if you can imagine such a thing. So it runs from February all the way into May. We're
Nice.
releasing it on Substack. Let me just make sure I get my URL correct. You can watch it on etchstudio.substack.com. That's ETCH studio.substack.com. That's where you can see it. You can subscribe to it there for free. If you subscribe for free, you'll get all kinds of like clips and little parts of episodes, or you can subscribe on a paid tier, in which case you get full episodes and all the bells and whistles. But trust me, there will be plenty of great stuff for people who don't want to pay. We already have up there a bunch of clips from the interviews that aren't actually in the episode. So we pulled a bunch of stuff out there and put it up for free so people can get a sense of what it's going to be. So that's where they can see it. And it runs, yeah, all the way through May. So it'll be going for a while.
I love that. And please, everybody, go check it out. Like, it's something so special. I really can't say that enough. But before we wrap up, I have two questions. The basic
Okay.
question is, where can our audience connect with you and learn more about you?
So I'm not on a ton of social media. You can find me on Instagram. I think it's just my name, Philip Gelatt,
Uh,
at Instagram. And then honestly, this Substack, this Substack is sort of like where this project will live. It's where future projects I'll be talking about. If you go back on the Substack, you can find little essays I've written about some of the projects that I mentioned at the start. I wrote a little one about Europa Report and some of the comics that I was talking about. So yeah, the Substack, honestly, like you will find me there basically is or on Instagram. Those are the two places.
I love that. And the second question is, because you're a fellow gamer and I'm a big gamer as well.
Yep.
I just gotta go straight into it and ask you, what are your top three horror video games that
Oh,
you did not work on?
well, yeah, that. Okay, okay. Oh, damn it. Okay, let me think about this. So, um, all right. Do you count Doom as a horror video game?
You said Dune or Doom?
Doom, Doom,
Of
Doom.
course. Yeah, of
Okay,
course. That's
okay.
the there.
So not Doom 1 or 2, but the one that they put out in the early 2000s that was all about like spooky lighting. I think they called it Doom 3.
Three. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Doom 3 for sure for me, way up there. I really liked what's it called? Immortality. It just came out as it's like a weird FMV
Yeah, yeah.
game. Yep. I'm a
Okay.
big fan of that. And then um I mean, my brain tells me that I should put a Resident Evil on the list, but I don't but I'm not sure which one I would pick, to be totally honest. Um okay, let me think for one more second if I have one other one. So I'm gonna tell you, let me just by way of a digression, a shocking digression. I've never actually been that big a fan of Silent Hill games.
Oh,
It's really weird. I tried Silent Hill 2 and I was like, I don't know. And then I tried that one. What's the one where you're like locked in the room and yet
oh, it's called The Room.
it's
Yeah.
called the room. And I was like, this concept is awesome. I'm gonna love this. I
Yeah.
don't know. It never took. Um, so I'm gonna say this just by way of a plug of a game that I really like, even though this is cheating. It's not really a horror game. This game, let me look at my desktop. The new one's called Rise of the Golden Idol. Have you played these games?
I am
The
not. No.
Okay, so they're great. They are horror adjacent. They're more like mysteries. I can't. I'll sound like a blathering idiot if I try to describe to you how you play these games. But if you're
Okay.
at all interested in like mystery games with a patina of horror, there's some cult stuff and some murder going on. The new one's called Rise of the Broken Idol. Rise of the Golden Idol. I can't remember what the first one's called. Curse of the Golden Idol, maybe. They're on PC. I love them. They're super great. So I sort of cheated on that one, but those are my answers.
Those are not bad answers for sure. I give you the Doom 3 one is my favorite choice you picked because just really quickly, Doom 3, in my opinion, took a lot of the new transition to 3D, right? And I like this, but also if to me, it feels a lot like what Half-Life 2 could also be if it was
Yep.
heavily horror. And I thought that was so awesome. So great call on that one. Although I will tell you this, the thing that drove me crazy about that damn game was that you had to keep switching between your gun and your flashlight. And that was the stupidest thing ever.
But well, okay, look. I don't know how much time we have left, but look, let's just pick at this for a second.
Okay.
Yes, I understand that as a human being, you can clearly do both. But as a horror game mechanic, it's awesome because it forced you to choose whether you wanted to see or whether you wanted to shoot. And
Yeah.
that was the whole thing for me was like forcing you to make that choice was so again nonsensical but also intelligent, I think from a mood perspective, you know.
You actually might have just changed my opinion on that because I never thought about it like that. Okay, awesome. All right, buddy. Well, we'll wrap up here, but please go check out First Word on Horror when it comes out February 7th on Substack. Philip, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
Thank
I
you.
really cannot wait for the series to come out and for everybody to check it out. So thank you, everybody, and we'll be right back after this.